This is Nick the Newbie Marinelli, and you're listening to Pixelated Audio, episode 148.
All right, welcome back to Pixelated Audio, a podcast focusing on game audio, its history, and the people behind it. We're your hosts. I'm Brian, and this is Gene.
Hey, everybody. Today we got another long-standing member of the VGM community joining us, Nick Marinelli. We've actually crossed paths with Nick a few times over the years, and we all share a deep love of VGM. So he actually approached us about doing a show, and we sort of landed on this topic of covering our own shared histories of the VGM community as it's evolved over the last 20 years or so. And, it's something we talk about from time to time, but now is our excuse to talk about it at length. So welcome to the show, Nick, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Nick Marinelli. Thanks for having me on. I am the former executive director of MagFest up until 2019. Now I'm an independent event producer, and I also the co-creator of Video Games in Concert, which is the world's first booking agency for video game music bands, and you can find that at gamemusic.rocks.
That's awesome. It's great that that's like a thing now, right? 20 years ago, that there's no way that would have existed, but now it's awesome because there's so many great bands out there and so much great music. So I'm really excited for this new venture that you're starting. It's really great.
Yeah, and I've already seen some of your stuff at various events. I know 88-Bit, Rob Kovacs, has been at a number of events. I know you're a big supporter of his. I think he's actually one of your artists. Is that right?
Yeah, I have a more special relationship with Rob. Well, not quite like that, but I'm his. I'm actually Rob's manager, so I'm all in on Rob, and so I help him like in all aspects of the 88-Bit brand, not just booking gigs for him.
Awesome. We just were talking about Rob a few episodes ago. And I'm pretty sure we brought this up, but he's just the nicest person on the planet. Super sweet guy, and just has like this really awesome love for NES tracks.
And he's really blowing up too. I feel like in the last couple of years, I've just seen him a lot more visibly, not just in the VGM community, but in the broader music community over in, I think it's Cleveland. And I'm really proud of all of the stuff that he's done. And I'm assuming that's in no small part thanks to your help.
I mean, I'm just trying my best here to just kind of give him plugs wherever possible, get him gigs. Most of my help comes in project management and just keeping him on task.
Well, you got the artist, the talent. They got to have somebody to keep him in line.
Yeah, I figured out a long time ago that like I'm never going to be a musician myself, so I should just use my spreadsheet abilities to help musicians be the best that they can be.
It's hard to do it all. I know I've switched to being more of the manager of other people's time than a musician myself in the last 5 years or so. But anyway, getting on with that, we talk a lot about the VGM community, and obviously Pixelated Audio is a part of that. We have our own sort of world. But, we've actually been talking a little bit more about it. We had that episode 144 with Josh about Bonus Stage and all of the concerts online, which has been really great. And so that's an area we haven't talked about as much on our show, but we're starting to do a little bit more, which is the whole VGM remixes, arrangements, covers. I mean, it's been there since the beginning. It's not a new thing. We just tend to focus more on the chip music, talking with the composers, sort of straight from the source. But it's kind of almost like the alternate side to this world. And, we've been really in love with that music since the beginning. It's just not exactly the direction our show has gone. So I'm curious, Nick, what is it about this topic that drew you to it? Why did you want to come onto the show and talk about it?
Video game music, oddly enough, is a very central point in my life. I'd loved it ever since I was a kid. And as a kid, you bond with other kids by listening to whatever's the popular music on the radio. And Nirvana and Marilyn Manson at the time, like that wasn't my thing. I was into Storm Eagle, and no one else was. And so it was a very isolating feeling in grade school. So, when I started to get immersed in this online community, which turned into, a real life community, which, turned into me getting married because of video game music. most everything I have in my life is thanks to the video game music community.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, and being a part of it for as long as you have and we have, we've seen like these really interesting things that we'll never forget. And if we talk about like this track that brought us in, for example, the Storm Eagle track from Mega Man X, this is an interesting one because this is from VGMusic.com. That's where you originally found this. Tell us about this track.
So I chose this track because, you know, this episode we were talking about my perspective of the growth and evolution of the video game music cover, arrange, remix scene. And VGMusic.com, this is from my perspective, you know, a white guy living on East Coast USA. It's totally different in Brazil, it's totally different in Japan. But from my perspective, VGMusic.com was the first place that you could go to get fan arrangements of video game music, or even video game music online at all. Because people had to recreate this stuff by hand in MIDI because there was no such thing as audio compression. There's only waves online, and good luck downloading a wave over a 28K modem.
Right.
I was right there too. I remember it was like, these were MIDI, so they were very small, maybe 5-10 kilobytes. So I remember being like, oh, do they have this game? Do they have this track from this game? I think my first was probably, I don't know, Mega Man 5 or 6. I think I was looking for Plant Man or Wave Man or something. I don't know why. I think it's what I had been playing at the time.
Yeah, you know, I want to say, you know, on to Nick's point, you know, like, but from our end too, you know, like, we started, like, I started with VG Music as well. That was the first way, I mean, other than playing it in the game, right? Like, this is the first way you could actually go somewhere, find the music, download it, or find music like what you remember, download it, and listen to it without the game. And this was huge. I remember the first MIDI I downloaded, it was Matoya's Cavern. I remember the file name too. It was like matoya2.mid. And like, it blew my mind. Like, it was coming, you know, I had just gotten a new Sound Blaster Pro, I want to say. And it was, you know, I had these two little, you know, just stereo PC speakers, and it was so amazing. It blew I listened to that thing so much. And then just from there, you know, I started downloading all sorts of MIDIs. You know, I was downloading megs of, now that just sounds so silly, but
multiple megs.
Yeah, multiple megs.
But it's funny because I think what we're almost sort of getting at is this is validation that there are other people in the world that like this music. I mean, keep in mind, this is like, I think the site, if I remember checking the copyright date, was 96. I don't think I discovered it until maybe 98 or 99, but still, that's pretty early on in internet VGM days. So like, somebody else liked the stuff. Yeah.
It's funny that we can talk about it like this with, like, there's three of us in this, you know, in this chat right now. We're talking about the exact same thing from what, like 25 years ago or whatever. And at the time, I was like, man, I found this website that nobody knows about. This has got to be like the most random. Of course, like, everybody has heard of this now. I mean, in our scene has heard of it, right? But like, back then, you know, this was it. This was all it was. And if you met somebody who also knew this website, it was like, wow, we are definitely bros. Oh, before we forget, Storm Eagle for Mega Man X was composed by Makoto Tomozawa and arranged by Jarron Woodsorrel. So awesome. I wonder if they're still doing remixes. We'll find out. Anyways, let's get into our next track here. This is Castlevania 2 from the Castlevania 2 NES version, composed by the Konami Kukeiha Club, arranged by the Minibosses.
That was Castlevania 2, composed by the Konami Kukeiha Club, arranged by and performed by the Minibosses.
This is one of their first tracks that I ever heard. This is like a live, I think more like a live version. I remember a long time ago, it had to be when I was senior in high school. I want to say around senior in high school that I heard, maybe it was later on. No, maybe it was much later on. I don't remember now. But anyways, this is one of the first tracks I heard and blew me away. They go through all of the hits from Castlevania 2, which is one of my favorite Castlevania games of all time.
Oh, it's a great soundtrack. This is actually off of their first EP in 2000, although I don't know if I heard it until maybe 2003 or 4. I think I had discovered the Minibosses around the same time that Metroid Metal was already around. So that might have been 2003 or 4, yeah.
I remember... it being in the courtyard of my school's cafeteria. My friend had brought in, it was the June or July 2000 issue of EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly. And he's like, Nick, you got to check this out. It's an article about a band that plays video game music. And this completely blew my friend and I mind, this concept that, it's not just MIDIs or mod trackers or wave files and MP3s online that you could start to get by this time. It was actual someone playing this stuff. So I went home and I bought the CD right away, and I just listened to it for days on end. I had many unsuccessful attempts to learn guitar after listening to the CD.
I think Minibosses are kind of when I think of VGM cover band, like live bands, they are, to me, the de facto. I feel like this is my introduction to like live cover bands for video game music, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, they're a landmark. I can't think of anybody. I'm sure there were bands that were before, but they're, for me, the first VGM cover band. That's how I kind of have them in my mind.
Yeah, like I'm the same way. In my mind, like the video game music cover scene in America was started by the Minibosses.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, they're still doing it too. Like, when was the last? Were they at the last Mag?
They must have been Mag 2019, Mag West 2019. And actually, they're working on a new album to this day. It's funny. A lot has changed with the band. Some of the band members now have their kids playing in it, so it's sort of
so cool.
It's so really cool. Yeah. And they're playing to packed houses. I mean, obviously COVID accepted, but they're huge. I mean, these guys still have a big draw. I mean, they must love it because 20 years is a long time for any band to be together. And video game music is one of those things that I think once you get into it, you really never want to let go.
It is a very different lineup. I think they might have one member left from the original, or they swapped them in and out over the years. But that is kind of. It's interesting to think how old we are that this band that we discovered in high school, now their children are playing.
Oh, I know. That's a good reminder.
Funny, when Nick brought this to my attention, he's like, oh, I want to have this track, but not the one from the 2004 one that you can find on their Bandcamp. I'm like, where am I going to find this? I didn't have the CD. I know I had a probably illegal rip of it back in the day. So I actually reached out to the band and they were like, oh yeah, let me dig through the FTP. It took 2 or 3 days, but they dug it up and they gave us a copy. So we actually have a track from the Minibosses. This is, the recording they provided to us. So thank you very much. That was very gracious of you. And I did also donate to the new album that's coming out. So
we'll have to put a link. I gotta. Yeah,
we'll definitely put a link to that.
Awesome. Yeah. So Nick, how many times have you seen the Minibosses live?
A dozen? 15? I lose count. I remember they were touring with Jimmy Eat World, and they got me tickets. So I went in, I saw them play, and then I left before Jimmy Eat World started because I just didn't give a shit.
Sounds about right. Cool.
Oh man.
Awesome. Well, let's keep things going. What do we got next, Nick?
Next track is Terra in Black, originally composed by Nobuo Uematsu, and arranged by Ailsean, Sean Stone.
Awesome.
Cool.
Let's take a listen.
That was Terra in Black from Final Fantasy VI or 3. Composed by Nobuo Uematsu and arranged by Ailsean on OCRemix. And that was remix number 206. Dude, going back a ways.
Back a ways. Oh, yeah. So this wouldn't have been on the... there was a Final Fantasy remake album, or a Final Fantasy VI remake album, like Balance something.
Balance and Ruin?
Yes, that's the one. So I guess it wouldn't have been on that. But wow, what a great track this was. Good pick.
Yeah, I picked this one because around the same time that the Minibosses were coming about, OCRemix, Overclocked Remix, the first website that hosted video game arrangements that weren't MIDIs. And I think this was a good example of like one of the early hits of that era. And OCRemix was started because you had all of these MIDIs, but people wanted to have higher quality versions, but they didn't just want MIDIs with better instruments put on top of them. So OCRemix had this panel of judges to kind of say that, okay, this meets our standards of quality, that you actually put effort into this and you didn't just change out the sound fonts or the VSTs or whatever on the MIDI.
Right.
I was rejected by the panel once or twice. I think it was the first VGM community that I actually spent any substantial amount of time on. I don't know how old the forums are, but you can probably still find my posts if you know how to look for them. From like 2003 or 4, somewhere in there.
I think I found it probably a little bit after you. So I was there around 2005, 2006, I think, when I started. But yeah, OCRemix, like, I've found dozens of tracks, like, not dozens, I mean hundreds of tracks that I've just fallen in love with, that are just, I can't believe how good they are. You know, like, this is just a part-time thing for you? Like, man, you should be like writing music, composing stuff. Yeah, it's really awesome.
And it's funny because as like we look over the journey of the music community, this episode, like, this community is growing up at the same rate that we as people are growing up, and so you can hear the musicians getting better as time goes on.
That's a really good point. Tell us about your experience with the OCRemix, Nick.
So, I mean, not much other to say that this was a very early track. This was December 2000 that this track came out, and I was exposed to OCRemix around the same time I was exposed to VGMix, which is where the next track is coming from. And I don't know should we start talking about that now, or we'll wait until after the track?
Oh, I guess we'll just play the track and then start talking about it. Are you okay?
Yeah, let's go.
Gene, can we jump into the next one?
I'm good with it. Yeah, let's jump into the next track.
The next track is Time Chill from Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo. This was arranged by MV on the site VGMix.
was Time Chill from Chrono Trigger on the Super NES, composed by Yasunori Mitsuda and arranged by MV for the site VGMix.
So VGMix was a site started in direct rebellion to the judges panel of OCRemix.
I remember that.
Yep.
Jake Vert Kaufman, who was at the time just a pharmacy tech at CVS and is now professional game music composer, has his own studio, Mint Potion. He did the soundtrack to Contra 4. He's done soundtracks on Cartoon Network.
Shovel Knight,
yeah, of course. He wanted to make a site where anybody could submit music, and the quality of that music was decided by the community and not by the personal tastes of the judges who happened to be adjudicating the track. And so instead of just a kind of a sea of tracks that were deemed acceptable, there was these tiers on the site from like legendary down to very bad, and people would just kind of vote on what they liked and did. It was like very early Reddit for video game music arrangements.
That's awesome. This is the site that I have the least amount of experience with. I've been there a handful of times. I think at this point I was no longer living in the US, so I had just kind of lost track of things, like all video game music cover stuff related. Not that I had no interest, I just was in a different mindset, I guess, at the time. So yeah, I had missed a lot of this. It seems really cool.
I was actually there for the genesis of this, maybe not the exact first day, but I remember a lot of people migrating over. And in fact, I do have a couple of, at the time, I believe, average rated tracks. So I'm very proud of those. When I was just starting out with music production back then, my weapon of choice was Fruity Loops. I did not know how DAWs worked before then, or digital audio workstations, how a lot of people make music. So it was like my motivation to learn music production in the earliest days. I must have been 16 or 17 at the time. And, it opened up I think you kind of hinted at this very early on, Nick, but video game music has opened up a lot of really weird doors for me. And many of them are positive. Slightly embarrassed by the stuff that I put out on VGMix, but, it was 20 years ago.
I'm trying to find it here. What was your handle?
I'm not going to say that. You can look it up. It's not that hard to find me on the internet.
First person to find it and post it in Discord wins.
No, God. All right. I got an email about one of my tracks from 2 years ago. Somebody sent me an email. It was like, can I use this on something? And I'm like, I'd rather you didn't. So, it's, but really, it does motivate you to want to take part. It was something that I felt really strongly about. And it was probably the first time that I really put myself out there.
No, yeah. So I will say that, although it was created in direct rebellion to the OCR, it did become more amicable as time went on. And, whatever holy war there was, OCRemix won it because, VGMix, just Jake, he was too busy to maintain the site. So it eventually, by 2006, 2007, it was just shut down for good. But by that point, the community had already begun fission, and that chain reaction was unstoppable at that point, with or without VGMix.
Well, there was VGMix, and then there was VGMix X or something like that, a few different.
There was VGMix 1. There was VGMix 2. I never actually saw VGMix 1, but I saw VGMix 2. There was a panel at MagFest 5 talking about all the great features that VGMix 3 was going to have, but VGMix 3 never came. There was just VGMix X, which was a stepping stone. It was supposed to be a stepping stone to VGMix 3, but it never did get released.
I don't remember which one was which. All I know is that it did inspire some other sites like it. You mentioned the whole rating system. This was a little bit later, but Remix 64 basically copied the exact same format where tracks would have smiley faces, GamePro style, based on how much people liked them. And that was pretty much Commodore 64 and Amiga, but clearly VGMix had an impact, even though they were kind of around for a short period of time. But
absolutely,
I thought there was a lot of really cool, just for me personally, I was happy that there was a community that was a little bit more anything goes. It was more welcoming to me. But that said, OCRemix has been this like continuous presence in the game music community, and it's only grown, exponentially since then.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I think that the growth from all of these, whether you call them competing or whatever sites, eventually, I mean, people just wanted to write music, right? Like you might have had your disagreements in certain administration, but at the end of the day, people wrote some really good stuff on all the platforms. So it didn't really matter.
Yeah, we're all swimming in the same direction. Everybody wants more VGM, so it doesn't really matter where it comes from after a certain point.
Absolutely. All right, you ready to jump into our next track? What do we got?
We got La Hora es Tarde, a arrangement of Clockwork from Castlevania 3 and the Clock Tower from Circle of the Moon. And this is by House the Great.
All right, that was La Hora es Tarde from Castlevania 3 and Castlevania Circle of the Moon on the Game Boy Advance, arranged by House the Great from the site Dwelling of Duels.
And that means the hour is late. For anybody that doesn't speak any Spanish.
Thanks,
Of
Gene.
course.
Oh, come on.
I had picked this track to be emblematic of Dwelling of Duels, which was kind of a companion site to VGMix. They both started to grow up at the same time, and they both had a rating system where anybody could vote on the tracks. There were no real judges, but the difference was, one, it was a monthly competition where there was a different theme every month, and two, the chief requirement was that the lead instrument had to be played live. So Dwelling of Duels was a game arrangement site that really helped transform the video game fan community from remixes to arrangements.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's a lot of creativity on display. I mean, in all of the tracks, but in this one, I felt like especially you got that sort of like Spanish guitar thing coming in, and you really know that people are starting to push what VGM arrangements really should be about, not just like synths and whatnot, but stylistically, and it's a great track. I love it.
Yeah, you definitely, there's like OCR had a lot heavier skew towards EDM, whereas as Dwelling of Duels, well, in its early days was a lot more rock and metal, but it diversified as time went on.
Dwelling of Duels was one that I didn't really, I knew of this site. I had gone there a few times, but I never was that involved in. I don't know why, actually. I don't know. The music's pretty awesome. I don't know. It got past me.
Well, the nature of it is kind of almost targeted more towards musicians and listening to other musicians, because it's all about growing and improving and getting the really tough feedback on your performance and production chops. And you can hear, like, just over time, over 10, 15 years, seeing the same names getting better, their entries getting better and better as time goes on.
That's pretty awesome. Like, so how does the site work? Like, there's just like a monthly competition, something like that.
They announce what the theme is, which is it like rotates. It's every third month is a free month. You can do everything, and then there's something. It's like something from action games, something from shooter games, something from water levels, something from Nintendo games, and all submissions are released at the end of the month anonymously, so you don't know whose song is what. And then everyone gets together in a listening party. It used to be IRC, now it's Twitch, and everyone just kind of comments as the songs go, and then they submit their votes. And then at the start of the next month, the next theme is revealed, and the winners from the previous month are also revealed. That's
a great way to do it. Make it anonymous, and then reveal the names after the fact. That keeps it really honest to not playing favorites and stuff like that. I really like that. Yeah, and I noticed that some of the March winners, I'm looking right now, there's some familiar names on there. Eric WK, 62 Sounds. I think we've had music from both of them on the show.
I think we definitely
really
had something from Eric. Who was the other guy you said?
62 Sounds.
I don't know if we had
absolutely
them, but yeah.
Positive we had something from 62 Sounds at one point. I'm trying to think what, but anyways, yeah, the site looks really cool. Like, I wish I had maybe spent more time here. It looks like they have a Discord channel. They got also, you can like listen in. Oops, I might start playing something right now. No, but this is really cool. Yeah, we should make sure we have a link to all this stuff in the show notes.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is I have friends that are still submitting tracks today. And when was the site founded? Do you remember?
I want to say, I think the first duel was like July 2003. I want to say. I can
that early.
Yeah, that's way back. And that's what's really cool about a lot of these VGMix accepted. We have these communities that are going back 20 years. And in fact, even VG Music, the MIDI site, still has pretty regular updates today, if you can believe it. Like, it's delightfully Web 1.0, but it's still got updates as of like February of 2021.
That's so funny.
So got the blue marble background.
I know. It still does.
For
great.
25 years, the same blue, and like they can't ever take it off.
No.
It's too much a part of the site at this point. But that's what's so cool is you have these communities where people just like have this safe environment to get better, where people are coming in, maybe many years ago, maybe now for the first time and building their chops. And I mean, you'll notice maybe not so many of the names that we've played, but these communities are where a lot of our professional VGM composers, remixers, arrangers like started.
Ended up.
Yeah, they did end up there too. But like people like Stemage, he's a name that comes up a lot. He was involved in a lot of these things, and so the community kind of is, maybe if you're just hearing about it for the first time, just know that there is this deep history and that it doesn't come from nowhere. It's just, years of just consistently doing the same thing over and over.
It is funny, though, that a lot of, going back to what Nick was saying earlier, that really hit home. I mean, like, a lot of these people were our age. I mean, it was like kind of our, generation of kids, like the early PC, NES, that age range of kids kind of going through. And, I mean, of course, there's younger kids and stuff doing it now, but growing up with it, you can see this progression in not only quality, but like, I'm just looking at the websites, like just the technology over time, and yeah, I'm looking back, they have everything, the original duels from like 2003, September, October, November, December, they're all in there. There's like, 4 or 5 songs only, but like, that's really cool that you can go back that far and they have archived all that stuff. It reminds me a lot of the demo scene and demo scene compos and packing them into more of a video game related battle kind of thing, because the winners, the themes and stuff like that is all very much the same idea.
You're exactly right, and it had not occurred to me until you said that just now, how similar it is to demo scene.
Well, it's funny because like I think of this, and then I think of Battle of the Bits and some of these new. It's not really remix. It's new creations, but new creations where you can rank stuff, kind of like the Reddit feel. It's basically one of the newer versions to me of this kind of stuff. Where
competition websites.
Yeah, competition, but music competition, and very much in the vein of video games. This is now Battle of the Bits isn't necessarily video game specific, but it's video game or
hardware,
game audio
times,
hardware, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. I can totally see like there's this huge like crossover, and it just shows how diverse it's funny because video game music, we think like, oh, it's a very niche kind of topic, but like even within that, it's like there's subtopics that are big, so it's not that niche anymore, so,
no, especially
and
not
it hasn't
these
been
days.
For like 25 years, so we can't say that anymore. Anyways, so let's get into our next track. Gene, what's on the list?
So the next track is Dr. Wily's theme from Mega Man 2 on the NES, composed by Takashi Tateishi and arranged by Power Glove.
right, that was Dr. Wily's theme from Mega Man 2, arranged by Power Glove, and that was a face-melting remix from Mega Man 2.
I'd picked that one because while the Minibosses, they're the seminal VGM cover band. They're still musicians kind of in their part-time, whereas Power Glove was the first commercially successful video game band. Like these guys ended up touring with Dragon Force.
Wow.
I can see that. Yeah.
and I do want to say that like that particular track that you just heard their production sounds a lot better now. I chose that because that was a snippet in time in 2006 when they were first coming onto the scene, and really that's at the time that was the best that you had ever heard.
Absolutely. And on your point there, like some of this music isn't the best versions of the mastering that we've heard from these bands, but like it is that point in history that's so interesting, to hear these early bands, and also that progression of their talents and production, and just video game music being in the spotlight is pretty awesome. I had heard of Power Glove. I wasn't really that familiar with the group, but this is from an album, correctly? One of their early albums.
I think it's their first full album. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was 2005. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. So yeah, Power Glove. Now, and are they still doing stuff today?
Well, I mean, today, no one's doing stuff right now.
Well, I mean,
but,
you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Are they still together, right?
Yeah, they've had a couple of changes in the lineup, but they've still got Basil, the beefiest drummer you've ever seen in your life, and I forget if Nick is still with them. But yeah, I mean, they're still going strong.
So I wanted to bring up a point here, which is, I mean, I think Mega Man 2 Wily's theme is probably one of the anthems of video game music. Like when I looked at the song list that you sent us initially, I'll be honest, I rolled my eyes a little bit. I'm like, we only do deep Japanese PC 98 only cuts on this show. But honestly, you're hearing the stuff that I'm saying. We grew up on the same stuff. I can't turn my nose up at this. This is still excellent music. The tracks
there's nothing bad about this music. This is what got me into game music.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to bring up. I think we've gotten so far up into our own heads that we've maybe forgotten that this stuff is still classic. It's still amazing, and like we said, maybe there's some production issues, but the core tracks are still fabulous.
Yeah, I'm with you, Gene. Wily, Mega Man 2, Wily 1, it's cliche at this point, but it wasn't at the time. That's
exactly.
What's important.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to our next track. This is from Toe Jammin' Earl. This is Toe Jammin', arranged by One Ups.
That was Toe Jammin' from Toe Jammin' Earl, performed by the One-Ups and composed originally by John Baker.
Ooh, those solos.
The sax solo is like so good. Just when you think the bass solo is like the star of the show here, which it is, the sax comes in and just about proves you wrong.
Now, a lot has changed in the 15 years or so since this track came out, but at the time, the One-Ups were, to me, the jazz funk VGM band. Like, that's who I thought of when I thought of this style. And they're still great today, but man, I wish I could put myself back in that point where, like, it was blowing my mind for the first time. You know what I mean? Like, to relive that experience of, like, hearing this music that I grew up listening to in this, you know, expanded form that just, like, spoke to me. And, you know, funk and jazz, all that stuff is something I've really always been a fan of. So it was just the coolest thing hearing it for the first time. This has been a walk down memory lane, this whole show.
Yeah, and like that's why we chose to put it in the lineup at this point. Like, technically speaking, it should have been played earlier, since the One-Ups, they started around the same time as the Minibosses, like early 2000s. But it really wanted to show that, you know, while all these bands, these video game cover bands, were starting to pop up, it wasn't just all rock and metal. You actually had jazz bands playing this stuff, so a wide breadth of musicians.
Yeah, that is something we kind of forget too, because there's a ton of VGM cover bands that are really in the rock, you know, scene. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot, and they all have their talents, but, you know, the funk, soul, stuff like that, like, it's so interesting to see even tracks that were never really designed to be, you know, funk performed that way. It's just so cool. It's just so interesting to hear these tracks that we grew up with in a different light. I love it.
There's klezmer VGM bands these days, you know? So it's, you can rearrange things however you like if you know what you're doing. So, I mean, this is a funk track. It's basically taking, you know, pretty straight ahead approach and just like expanding on it greatly. But there are bands, and we have one coming up in a little bit, that take tracks that weren't necessarily jazzy and just jazzing them up.
Absolutely. Let's jump into our next track here. Nick, what do we got?
We got Genova from Final Fantasy VII, originally composed by Nobuo Uematsu and performed by the Distant Worlds, music from Final Fantasy Orchestra.
All right, that was Genova from Final Fantasy VII on the PS1, composed by Uematsu, and then arranged for Distant Worlds, music from Final Fantasy.
So why'd you pick this track?
Because this brings us in the late aughts into our timeline, and this is when live performance of video game music, at least in the United States, were no longer just a fan thing, and were starting to be officially recognized by the game companies. Distant Worlds was a licensed Final Fantasy concert that Square Enix officially endorsed. And so things like Distant Worlds, Play, video games live, Dear Friends, Pokemon Symphony, Zelda Symphony of the Goddesses, all this stuff was starting to pop up around this time. And it was cool to see that the game companies actually gave a shit about the music, and they weren't just leaving it to the fans to just, to be in our little corner.
Yeah, it felt like a real thing.
It felt legitimate, yeah.
Yeah, it felt like a real thing, and I don't mean to belittle game music at all, obviously. It's more like, I remember concerts coming out, and I was like, wow, this is a thing. It's like they're recognizing this thing that I love, and they're actually doing it, and it wasn't just me downloading music from websites. Yeah,
in just 8 short years, we've gone from sadly making midis in your bedroom alone to now orchestras are performing it live on stage. I mean, it's a little bit of a compressed time frame, but it's true. I mean, it was starting to get to that point. Like I went to the Dear Friends Final Fantasy concert in I think 2006, and I managed to drag some friends along. Some of them that did know video game music and some that did not, and it was not a hard sell. It was. It was a fun time. It was a great concert. It definitely felt like it was a turning point in the acceptability or legitimacy of video game music.
Yeah, it's cathartic because, in Japan, they had concerts just like this in like 1993.
I know.
Yeah. Well, we got killer cuts.
Oh, God.
From
Killer Cuts. I forgot about. Right. What were we complaining about?
Yeah, exactly. So my wife went with me to Symphony of the Goddess twice, and she was not like a Zelda fan. She'd play games, but she's not a Zelda fan per se. And she absolutely adored it. She thought it was amazing. That's why she wanted to go the next year. And she had never really played any of the Final Fantasy games. She was more in like the Dragon Quest stuff. But like, for her, it was just incredible. Like, just to see the live orchestra, that was enough that she was just, and the music on top of course, is amazing, but that goes to show that, like, there was a lot of people there I know had never played a lot of those games, but it didn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, it's just the symphony, it's just music being great, and that's all that matters. So
I'd like to humble brag here just for a little bit. So my wife actually performed in Video Games Live a few times, and both of us actually performed in the choir for, the Zelda Symphony, when it was here in San Francisco and San Jose. This was maybe 5 or 6 years back. But
I wonder if I went to that one. I didn't know you yet.
You probably didn't. It was before we met. I mean, I was just like singing a bass part in a choir, so you would
look back at my photos.
Notice me, obviously. But I was very proud. It was a great concert. Yeah, I think it was the Symphony of the Goddess. I can't remember exactly which Zelda one. I think there were 2 major ones at the time.
Yeah. It was for both Symphony of the Goddess. They just had a second season.
Yeah, that's right. Cool. Let's jump into our next track here. This is Splash Woman from Mega Man 9. Arranged by Mega Ran.
This is a mission, not a small time thing. Got me on the case like I'm Sherlock Holmes. My dome kinda messed up from what I've been seeing and what I've been hearing. Got me not knowing what to believe in. I was breezing, battling bosses. The record is flawless, 0 losses till I came across this stunning young beast who resided at the bottom of the sea. And she told me her name was Splash Woman, beautiful but deadly. She was mad cunning, had a voice that could soothe the savage. Beast of physique was way above average. Magic the way she got me in a spell, got me on lockdown, sorta like a cell. But I got a mission that I can't afford to fail. But girl, I got a secret to tell. I don't know how to say this, so I'ma just say it, that you're my favorite. Even underwater, I'm enchanted by your fragrance. You're nothing to play with, won't you be my baby? Or maybe we can get up out of this land and maybe get a bite somewhere, my dear. Even though she knew the truth about Rand, I had a feeling she wouldn't understand. Yo, I got a chance. I thought I was in love before, but I love you more. So baby, come aboard and go away with me, so I can make you see what you mean to me. And baby, we can be free. Oh, whoa, under the sea. Oh, whoa, just you see. Like every couple years I get that feeling like I'm about to hit that ceiling. But I can't cause it's lined with spikes. And when I reached the lair and it was time to fight, I couldn't do it, punked out like Ashton's victim. You started singing and I had to listen. It was lovely what you sang, the fish came. All of a sudden the mission changed, insane. She told me about her true purpose. She used to save victims that fell through the surface. A few days ago the contract expired, and she was scheduled to be thrown into the fire. And while they gave her a reason to live, so now she gotta do what he says. She shed a tear and said, you don't understand, I gotta stick to the plan. I owe everything to this man, so please Mega Ran, don't take it personal, cause it hurts, I know, I'll make it worse, you know. But he saved me, baby, to turn my back on Wilder, you'd be just plain crazy. She said it's the only way it can end, let the battle begin, man, we can't be friends. So my heart sunk slow as the lair door closed. Through the Mega Buster cause it's time to roll, here we go. I thought I was in love before, but I love you more. So baby, come aboard and go away with me, so I can make you see what you mean to me. And baby, we can be free. Oh, whoa, under the sea. Oh, whoa, just you and me. So the battle was on and it was fierce. She hit me in the side and left the armor pierced. On her command, the fishes attacked me. I cocked the Mega Buster and hit him exactly. But the battle took a turn that was odd. Every time I fired a shot, she didn't dodge. She took each blast from the arm cannon, smiled at me as every shot was landing. At first I didn't know what she was planning, and suddenly I started understanding. Yo, I think she letting me win, giving me what I need so I can get to the end. By the 17th hit, she began to stagger, fell to the ground, so I ran and grabbed her. Looked her in the eyes, she tried to laugh, pulled me close and handed me her staff. I said I wish I didn't have to be like this. I'm thinking he might miss her if she be my miss. She said don't be foolish, you gotta do this. Let the whole city know what the truth is. Boy, you got stuff to do. I said girl, I would've gave it all up for you. I feel invincible when I'm holding you, but as far as love goes, I'm 0 for 2. I thought I was in love before, but I love you more. So baby, come aboard and go away with me, so I can make you see what you mean to me. And baby, we can be free. Oh, whoa, under the sea. Oh, whoa, just you and me.
That was Splash Woman from Mega Man 9, composed by Hiroki Isogai, and arranged and sung and rapped over by Mega Ran from his album Mega Ran 9. I love that album, but
yeah, good track.
Yeah.
Which is funny because like his actual rapper name is Random,
right?
And the album is called Mega Ran, but the album blew up so much that people just called him Mega Ran, so he just rolled with that and just kind of takes it as a second name.
Yeah, I think like his Twitter handle is like Mega Ran, and his it's his name is Mega Ran on there, but his Twitter handle is actually Random or something like that. I can never figure out which was which, but yeah. I've seen him live, twice, 2-3 times now?
Yeah, I've seen him a bunch of times. He's awesome. He's one of like the premier names of nerdcore in the VGM scene. I mean, I think he's near the top.
I'm trying to think, when did Nick, do you remember when he started kind of blowing up, or when he started doing this?
Late aughts, early 10s.
Okay.
Yeah, this album was 2009, and I know he was starting to get big from this album. And actually, I don't remember the exact timing of this, but he talks about it at length. At some point, he got officially sponsored or like recognized by Capcom as like their in-house. He like became an artist for Capcom, so they gave him their blessing to not only do these remixes, but like, you are now our artist who is like representing VGM for us. He may not have been the only one, but I think he may have been the first.
Yeah, they definitely, like, when it blew up, it caught their attention, and they could have easily shut him down, and they chose not to. They recognized how much of an impact he was making.
If it were Nintendo, it might have gone the other way.
Yeah.
Right. And Mega Ran is a great example of how video game music can really cross cultural boundaries.
Yeah, the world is changing, and actually, I'm gonna kind of preempt you a little bit by saying, since I discovered nerdcore, some folks know this already, but I have been booking music for MAG and other VGM events. I pretty much always make it a mission front and center for diverse acts. Nerdcore is always at top of mind for me. I always make sure to push for not as much of it as possible, but make sure that it gets equal standing with the VGM bands if I have any say in the lineup. So for me, nerdcore is video game music as much as anything else.
Yeah, like you wouldn't. The crowds you see at nerdcore shows are this incredibly diverse crowd, and the energy is so great, especially at Mega Ran shows. And when you walk out of a Mega Ran show, it's the sea of smiles, the positive energy from seeing him perform. It's downright cathartic, frankly.
Yeah, and he is happiest guy on the planet. Like, he's just smiling the whole time. Like, it's almost like a cheerleader up there. It's crazy. It's really
His
good.
energy is infectious. I mean, it's like that aspect of performance that's not just being good or being a competent performer, but just having this stage presence and charisma, and Ran has it. And I mean, Samus is also great. There's so many other nerdcore acts that are awesome. But again, it almost feels like you're picking out these kind of quintessential, this was the thing that put this on the map. And for me, it was Mega Ran. I mean, it's moved on past that, but like, still excellent to go back to. And I tend to buy his albums whenever they come out. I just bought the remake of Black Materia, the FF7 album. It's fantastic. Really, really great album.
He also has a book out called Dream Master.
Yes, I've been meaning to read it. I've seen a lot of my friends posting about it. I have not ordered my copy yet, but we should also put a link to that in the show notes.
Good idea. Let's jump into our next track here. This is Bob-Omb Battlefield from Mario 64, arranged by the Super Soul Bros.
That was Bob-Omb Battlefield by the Super Soul Bros, originally composed by Koji Kondo. And the Soul Bros, I think, are a testament to how far the video game cover band has come. Just the sheer raw talent in that group. And the amount of dancing you see at every single Soul Bros show, it's the energy is palpable. And so is the smell of people sweating from all the dancing.
Yeah, and for me, if we talked about the One-Ups as being kind of the first band, for me, the Soul Bros kind of set a new standard for what you have to achieve. And you can obviously take different approaches. There's so many great jazz bands, but as soon as I heard them, I was like adrenaline rushing. The music is so energetic and high octane for jazz music.
High quality is
that too. Everybody in that group. So this is a bit. We haven't really gotten to the regional stuff, but I do want to bring this up because they are a local San Jose band, close to us, to Brian and I, and a lot of the musicians are from San Jose State, and which is a great jazz school, by the way, for anybody who's interested in jazz music. But I mean, they're really great players. I actually met Robbie way back when at De Anza College. And he was a beast even back then. I mean, he's always been a maniac when it comes to performing on the stage, and his energy also very infectious. You come there for Robbie and are blown away by the fact that everybody is a fantastic musician.
Very cool. So, we've been listening to a lot of stuff. We've taken this journey from,
midis.
the VGMusic.com days, midis, all the way up. And we kind of, and not like the music has gotten better and better and better, and we landed on Soul Bros. But honestly, there's just this amazing collection of tracks that you've brought to share today. Where does all this history and all these, journeys that we've all gone on, where do you land now? Like, what are you doing these days, Nick? What are you're doing stuff for Mag, you're doing stuff for tell us about like what is keeping you going these days now.
So before I was working full-time for MagFest, I volunteered for MagFest, and while I was volunteering, I was a full-time software engineer. I did comp sci in college, and then all of a sudden I heeded the call of the nonprofit. Heeded the salary reduction of a nonprofit to really kind of live my dream of being able to really proselytize video game music.
You're a mission-driven guy. What can we say? It's a good thing.
And I am super proud of how far MagFest has come, and even though it's going through some rough patch right now, the community is so strong that it's going to come back bigger than ever. And myself, when I was in the captain's chair at MagFest, I had to stand up on a stage. I had to be a leader. I missed being down in the trenches, just kind of making a show happen, just getting it done. And so that's what I'm trying to do nowadays. I'm really trying to be an operations guru. Just events that need help, I want to be there for them. Like Super Smash Con. Like the week I left MagFest, Super Smash Con asked me to come help them out on site. Not sure what they wanted me for, just sure I'd be useful for something. So I showed up the day before, sized up the situation, and invented their security department and ran that through the weekend. And I was like, they were impressed with me, and I was happy with myself of how much I'd grown. I was able to so seamlessly integrate with their team. And so I love working on things like that. I was able to help next artist Carlos and Sane in the Rain work on physical production for his album. But the real big project I'm working on right now is, like I mentioned at the beginning, Danny Flam from Console, the video game big man, approached me and said, "Hey, there's a whole market, an untapped market for performance venues outside of MagFest and anime conventions, where these bands can play and where they can get paid serious money and not just whatever nonprofits like NAGFest can throw at them.
Mm-hmm.
So we built video games in concert, and our goal is to really bring these bands outside of that convention circuit and these online communities to mainstream venues and mainstream festivals, and really give these bands the respect they deserve.
It's funny because the people that are, our age working and can afford this kind of stuff to go see just a video game music concert now can do that. My parents probably would have been like, whatever, I'm not going to that. But now this is our music. This is speaking to us. We can go out and we don't have to go to a con just to go see a VGM cover band. There should just be hey, there is this band playing tonight here. And I think that you bringing that, especially with your background, leading a lot of what MAG made so great, is going to be a really powerful thing for the community.
That really, truly does mean a lot to me. So thank you for saying that.
And it's actually a really good point. I can't remember who was saying it on our show, but they were talking about the con dry season. And there is this basically 6-month period where people aren't going to anime conventions, video game conventions, but these bands are still practicing. They're still putting out music. There's no reason why they have to wait for those. And those are great events. Don't get me wrong. I think they're fantastic. But they absolutely should have the opportunity to play and get appreciated, not just by us, the people who love VGM, but other people who just want to hear a great performance from a great band. And so I think what you're doing is awesome.
I just think that there's no reason why these bands are playing in panel rooms and convention centers when they could be playing Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, no, that's so great to hear. I mean, the other thing is too, to go on a rant here, I hate that I can't just go, listen to one of these bands play just when I want. It's not easy. It's not easy. If I want to, even though Super Soul Bros are local, I can't just easily go see them every other weekend or something. It has to be some special event or something like that. And I hate that. I wish that smaller towns had the opportunity also. It wasn't just happening in San Jose, San Francisco, or, in this area, Oakland and stuff. It could happen in, Santa Cruz, and could happen in, Watsonville, or, something like that. I think that, why not, right? Why does it have to be so, I guess, exclusive? Make it happen, Nick.
Yeah, exactly. Where is video games in concert in every city in America?
Yeah, it's weird. Suddenly people aren't interested in concerts right now for some reason. Not sure why.
Yeah, well, when we figure it out, we'll let you know. But in the meantime, we have covered a great variety of music today that you brought us, Nick. We do have one more track, but before we talk about that, do you have any other last-minute plugs, any other things you want to say before we do our little wrap-up and then kind of talk about the last track?
Just video games in concert. Our website is gamemusic.rocks, and we're not just festivals and venues. If you got a company party and you want to bring a video game cover band to it, hit me up.
Sounds good. That's awesome.
Yeah, and again, the website is gamemusic.rocks, and you can just get me at nick@gamemusic.rocks.
Excellent. If you want to know more about our show, you can find us online at pixelatedaudio.com for show notes and track lists. We'll put all of the links to all of the bands in the show notes, and then also to Nick's site and what he's doing, so that it's easy to contact him. And if you like the show, leave comments or feedback on the website. We'd appreciate it. Join the Discord, get in on the action. There's a lot of stuff going around in the community.
Yeah. And if you're new to our podcast, make sure to check out some of our past episodes. I try to make this a bit of a themed one, so if you're interested in hearing more about some of the broader game community stuff, we've had some episodes recently. Our last episode, which should be out by the time this one is up, 147, Hardcore Gaming 101 with Xerxes. They're another stalwart of the game community. They have a great podcast. We just talked with Josh a few episodes before that of Bonus Stage, episode 144, and doing all of the Bonus Stage concerts. And this is a bit of an odd one, but an interesting one nonetheless. Episode 127, where we sort of walk through the early game history with a podcast called They Create Worlds, which is
a lot of fun.
Almost nothing to do with video game music. They're more on the business side and history, but it just goes to show that there's this huge community around games, and it's growing all of the time. I mean, we now have video game historians that are studying this stuff. How cool is that?
Awesome. Yeah, so much fun chatting with you, Nick, about the happenings around the video game music community. This is like a trip down memory lane, and I hope a lot of our listeners enjoyed some of the stuff. We don't play enough remixes and stuff on the show, but it is every now and then so fun to kind of tap into this just wealth of music. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun to be here. You guys run a great show. This was great. Thank you.
So we got one track left, taking out the show. It's a Beautiful Day Outside, Megalovania, from Undertale by Insane in the Rain, originally composed by Toby Fox. Tell us about this track, Nick.
So you could do an entire episode dedicated to YouTube, but Carlos Eni, Insane in the Rain, is really emblematic of YouTube. Whereas what's great about this is that video game music used to be in its spaces. It was either at VGMusic.com or it was at OCR or VGMix or DoD, where you could see these bands at MagFest, specifically MagFest, really not anywhere else. But then all of a sudden, there became this huge distributed community. It was not even a community. The fact that you could have people making game music and not know each other shows how much the community has grown, that it's not reliant on any one specific thing. So YouTube over the past 10 years has absolutely exploded in game covers, and in Carlos Insane in the Rain is top tier of those artists on YouTube.
That's a good point. Like YouTube, we kind of blow off because I don't like to listen to music using YouTube, like music, like video game music, but the remixes and the covers and stuff are where it's at, because you can see people in their element playing their instruments. One that comes to mind is Smooth McGroove, is the guy that does the you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
the acapella
stuff. The acapella, yeah, like that works perfectly for YouTube. So I'm really excited to take a listen to this music. Nick, again, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great having you.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I know this was a show that we definitely have been long overdue, and just sort of focusing a little bit more on this side of the VGM community. I'm sure we'll eventually get back to early 90s PC 98 stuff, but this is a nice refresher, nice breath of fresh air. So thanks again for being on the show, Nick. It's been great having you.
Thanks for letting me walk down the memory lane of the past 25 years.
Awesome. So this is It's a Beautiful Day Outside, Megalovania from Undertale, arranged by Insane in the Rain. Thanks again. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Bye.